Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another episode of Trudge Report. This is a recovery-based podcast, but don't worry. If you're not sober or you're not ready to be sober, we talk about plenty of other things, including sports, trending topics, and a good bit of nonsense. My name is Shawn and I am your host. I'm joined by my good friends and fellow Trudgers, Bill, Corey, and Greg. You can check out new episodes of Trudge Report every Tuesday. Please listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Later every week, be sure to watch our episodes on YouTube and Facebook, but please be sure to download on your listening platforms first. Remember to like and subscribe on all social media outlets with the handle @TrudgeReportPod. Again, that is @TrudgeReportPod. We are brought to you, as always, by the wonderful Stella Mix Podcast Management and our producer and editor, Miss Janine Stella. Gentlemen, good evening. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. How's it going?
Hello, I'm good.
Evening. Hi.
Corey, are you wavy again? What's going on?
I'm wavy again. The bandwidth in Boca Raton, by the way, pronounced Raton, not Raton. I think.
Also Spanish for the rat's mouth.
The rat's mouth, yes.
Nah.
Is that
Really?
accurate?
That's exactly accurate, yeah. You guys didn't know that?
This place
Would
got
I
cooler.
lie, boys?
Yes, you would, but that's correct, though. That is correct.
That's kind of cool. The
I
rat's
don't know
mouth.
if it is. I don't really think
I
so.
don't know if it's
I think
cool either.
totally stupid, but it's ironic. I will say that. It's ironic. So,
Wow. Do you know that Dave Matthews has a song called Pantala Nagapampa? You know what that means?
we don't. I don't.
There's a snake in my pants.
Is that like from
Cringe.
Toy Story? That's Boots from Toy Story. There's a snake
it's
in my
Boots.
boots. That's like, remember Blue Streak, the movie with Martin Lawrence? At the very end, Los Gatos, something, Los Pantalones. And he runs off. He's like, you just told those guys you have a whatever in your pants.
What movie is that?
Blue Streak.
Blue Streak. Might have been before your time, Corey. It's pretty funny. It's a Martin Lawrence at his maybe not his finest, but at a solid point in his career. Luke Wilson.
That is prime.
Good.
Yeah, it was like he was rattling off movies left and right back then. So it wasn't his absolute best, but it's solid. It's a good laugh. It's a good laugh.
I like it.
Definitely.
So Dave Chappelle's in it, so it's good.
Oh, it's great then.
So how's everybody doing? What's going on?
Real good.
Yeah.
I'm in Boca for a function. Are we around the horn right now?
We got to work on those pauses, dude.
I
Those
can't-
pauses
Let it rip,
pauses are
Corey.
terrible.
Fire
Go ahead,
fire
Corey.
it
You
in
go ahead
right
first.
there. Go ahead.
Okay,
Around the horn.
good.
You're
I'm going to
on
tell you.
first.
the horn. Right from that crack couch in the hotel there. Just fire it right in.
Yeah, I'm at the Marriott in Boca, or one of them at least, and it's a nice hotel. But yeah, as soon as we popped on video here, Bill pointed out that I'm in a crack house with this couch, and it kind of is dingy a little bit. I didn't really realize it. I don't know. Been a good week, and I'm excited for this weekend. I currently am watching WWE SmackDown. See what unfolds tonight in Philadelphia. And the Hall of Fame is right after that, where we have some notable entries that I won't really list, except for Paul Heyman. If you haven't heard of him, look him up. And then, yeah, tomorrow I'm flying to Philadelphia and getting my WrestleMania weekend kicked off, and hopefully a cheesesteak upon touchdown. So I'm excited.
Well, I can't say that I'm jealous, but I am happy for you because I know this means a lot to you.
It does. It's gotten, honestly, dude, I'm not going to geek out because I will have several long pauses and I will take forever, but it's gotten better all week. It's gotten better with the unfolding of everything that's going to happen. It's gotten so good. I'm actually I'm real upset that I'm not up there now, but I'm grateful that I get to go. What?
Yeah, I hear Walmart's popping off. What's going on, Corey?
Did you see the light just turn on? This thing is a dingy hotel. The electric's terrible.
On it.
The light keeps going down and up.
I didn't notice it, but it probably has to do with everybody flushing the toilet around you. That's typically how that stuff works.
Can't they hold it? Anyway,
Bill, how are you, sir? What's going on?
I'm good. Corey, just if you're a wrestling fan, we're gonna have more next week from Corey on that. And Corey, if you need a good electrician, I know one. Joey T got you, dude. I get him down there for you.
He's got Joe Ray. He's fine.
I was gonna say I got another one named Joe.
There you go. I'm good, man. Good week here. Shout out to everybody looking out for the fam. We're kind of trying to get back to the routine here. Really news and notes. Let's see here for myself. We got the Buccos, the Pirates raised the Jolly Roger 6-2, better win percentage than the Braves, and maybe the Indians are off to a hot start, but Pirates division odds plus 950 right now to win the division. I say it every time I mention stuff like this. I would never endorse gambling, but you should put like your mortgage on them winning the division this year, because I think we've got the real deal here. I think we've got a real team. It's exciting to watch. And actually, during the game today, it was snowing in Pittsburgh. It comes to a point there, and like the stadium's right off the point, and it was flooded almost all the way up to the stadium. So you had a flood outside. You had snow during the game. You've got earthquakes in New Jersey. You've got eclipses this week, full eclipses during the day, and the Pirates are 6-2. You better repent if you're out there, because this is starting to sound like the apocalypse to me. You better repent. It's time to come to Jesus, because when the Pirates are 6-2 and it's snowing in games and Cleveland's getting a full eclipse, you just never know. And Corey's going to be at WrestleMania. You just never know what's going to, unfold. Jesus might hit someone with a steel chair. So,
bet he would
at WrestleMania. So, yeah, for me, that's my main news and notes for the week. The earthquake in New York, or I should say New Jersey, but
New Jersey.
It was felt most because they have the biggest microphone by the people of New York. I saw them all over social media, and they were losing it. So which it could be scary, you know what I mean? And you have all those big buildings around you, so pretty crazy if you think about it. Also, it was announced today that it's going to be it's projecting to be a really crazy hurricane season here in Florida. So hopefully we can keep some of those New Yorkers in New York. So
they say that every year.
Yeah, no fear in this dojo. We're good.
That's right. Real quick shout out though to anyone in New York, New Jersey, if they got family. Hope everybody's okay. Legitimately, like, we make a lot of fun about New Jersey and Philly and all that, but legitimately we hope everyone's okay if you got friends or family.
Real quick, I got a bunch of family obviously in New Jersey and some in New York and Pennsylvania. It was so weird, the people that did feel it and then the people that didn't. Like, it didn't make sense if that makes sense to you guys. Like my mom felt it, and then 15 miles, north, my dad felt nothing. I don't know. Just the way it was, I don't know. Strange. Those things are strange.
Yeah. Could be the side of the plates you're on. I don't know.
Yeah. Me neither.
But no weather. I don't even know what the word is for someone who studies earthquakes.
I also didn't hear if there was like any mass destruction. Was there? I didn't hear of any.
Could have been structural damage, like buildings were shook pretty well.
Yeah.
But like Shawn said, on a serious note, as much as I despise some of those areas, we do not wish harm on the elderly or the people in the metropolitan area of the Eastern Seaboard. Definitely shout out to that. And besides that, I'm hoping to have a good weekend here with the kids. It looks like the weather's going to be nice down here in Florida. Could be out there on the golf course tomorrow. Dare I say, me out there. So could be an interesting weekend, and we'll see. Maybe we'll have a report next week. So back to you guys.
We might have to call that leading the witness a little bit, because we might have to explain a little bit that you totally made it sound like you're going to be playing golf tomorrow.
Well, stepping foot on a golf course. The last time I was on a golf course, Shawn, I sliced the ball across the thing, and I hit some guy's windshield in the parking lot. This is the only time I've ever golfed in Pittsburgh. And, we're caromming around the golf course, drinking beers and doing whatever. And I get up there and I slice the ball, not on purpose, and Sure enough, right into this guy's windshield. He came over. He was not happy. Then the golf course staff came out and assured him that it was his fault for parking there, which I felt bad about. And I was like, you know what? I'm never going to golf again, I don't think. So, yeah, that was the last time. So the fact I'm stepping foot on there, but it is for my daughter. And so we'll see what happens. We'll see.
Our daughters, my daughter and Bill's daughter, they're doing a little girls' golf clinic that starts tomorrow with another couple friends. So they'll be excited. They're pumped.
Should be a great time.
Pumped, so.
Is it carom or carome?
I believe it's
Carom.
Harem.
Carom.
All right.
Have you been saying carome every time?
Well, I haven't been saying that at all, but if I did read it in a group of people, I said it wrong.
How did
Wouldn't
you
be
say
the
it again?
first time.
No, it wouldn't.
All right.
How you doing, Greg?
Good evening, gentlemen. And I use
up, buddy?
that term, gentleman, loosely around some of you. I'll get to that in just a moment. As Bill touched on, yes, Eclipse mania has taken over, certainly in cities across the United States, and mine as well. And I've been given, I think, 12 pairs of Eclipse glasses now. And yeah, everybody's just losing their minds, man. We got a lot of out of towners in town, so it kind of feels like Florida here, except minus the weather. Yeah, it's just crazy. Like, they're coming on the news like, get a bunch of food and water, get 2 weeks worth of food, get a bunch of money out of the bank, make sure you've got fuel in your car. I'm like, listen, I've lived through hurricanes in Florida where they didn't prep us like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is a 4-minute eclipse. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it's an all-day event, but it's going to last 4 minutes, people. The world is not coming to an end. Or maybe it is,
Greg, what is the projection of what's going to happen? Or is it just fear baiting? Because you can't really run from the rapture. You know what I mean? Like,
so in my line of work, we ship a lot of stuff out. We have a fleet of drivers that delivers a lot of material and stuff like that, construction material, job sites. The only thing that's really going to affect us is like there's going to be an excess of traffic. So there's going to be way more people on the road at Monday at noon than there normally is, But other than that, nothing.
It's fine. It's all a scam.
Yeah,
it's a
right.
Scam.
It's going to be it's going to be a cool thing to watch. I'm excited, but it's not the end of the world by any means.
Are the glasses they give you? Are they like the 3D glasses you get at like Disney World for the ride?
That is correct.
Thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We also have a friend named Mark who has been prodding us all day to open a glasses stand. He says he has the plug. He can get the glasses very cheap, and he's trying to resell the glasses to us. I think he stole them from a library, though.
I think he got them from Taiwan, and I think he's selling them for quadruple the profit. So
bootleg
the cost
sounds about right.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that. In some real quick, noteworthy NFL news, Stephon Diggs was traded to the Houston Texans yesterday, essentially for a sack of magic beans and a box of peanuts, and they get a number one wide receiver in return. But even more importantly, it is now the end of one of the most mediocre, underproducing, overrated eras in sports, and certainly in the city of Buffalo. Shout out to our faithful friend Tyler. This little blurb here is just for you. This team has been lauded year in, year out over the last 4 years of being some Super Bowl contenders. And the biggest thing they've had to celebrate is that they got 2 Madden covers out of it. They've been middle of the pack for quite some time, and I'm ready to stop hearing about all this, basically fabricated greatness. And if you don't believe me, you just got to look at the numbers. Just listing the teams over the last 4 years that have been better. Obviously, the Super Bowl winners: Chiefs, Rams, Buccaneers. Right. Then you've got the Niners, the Bengals, the Eagles.
Yes.
Just to name a few. And to name a couple more this year: the
Not
Ravens,
by much, but the
Lions, the Green Bay Packers. So that means that maybe, and just maybe, they're the 10th best team over the last 4 years, right? And they're all while being showered with praise from the fans and the media alike, right? So congrats. You guys are slightly better than the Dolphins in cold weather, okay? Next year, I look forward to seeing Josh Allen look like what he really is, which is a run-of-the-mill quarterback that does know how to make some great plays. But let's face it, because everybody says, oh, well, look at what Mahomes did this year, and he didn't have a true number one wide receiver. Lamar hasn't always played with the most talented core of wide receivers, yada, yada, yada. This dude is not Patrick Mahomes, and he's not Lamar Jackson, and not even close in my book. So, nope. Buffalo fans, we look forward to you maybe making the wild card or just maybe missing it altogether. So it's been real in that respect.
That's
and
spicy, Greg.
Huh?
That's spicy. I don't know.
Hey,
I like Josh Allen. I don't know. He might be the truth, dude. He might.
I don't know.
Out there, man.
I don't know. I think he's got to ask a better question, but.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's going to be fun to watch for either way. It'll be fun to watch,
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Because Kevin, I hope you're listening as well. So
yep. And real quick, just before we get into the meat of the episode, because we do have a lot to unpack, but we're back real quick. Want to address WrestleMania in Philly real quick. I know it's already been mentioned a little bit, but citizens of Philadelphia, did you feel the ground shake today? Did you sense something different in the air? No? It unfortunately wasn't the earthquake. It wasn't God trying to take out your cesspool of a city this afternoon. For the next 72 hours, you undeserving jabronis will be graced by the presence of the final boss, The Rock, the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, and the rest of the bloodline. This is the absolute closest thing to greatness or championship gold you scumbags are going to taste in quite some time. And this goes especially for you, Corey. Yes, I hope you have fun. Make sure you get the largest bucket of popcorn your little hands can grasp and sit back and breathe it all in. Because guess what? August is quickly approaching. And it doesn't matter how many prayers you say or vitamins you eat. Okay. When we get to SummerSlam, on the banks of the majestic Lake Erie, I'm going to make your monkey ass famous. And that's all I got to say about that.
Yes.
Well done.
Oh
I hate
God.
wrestling, and that made me interested.
I'm interested for the Corey Greg
right
match.
It's scheduled. It's on the bill. God, you're getting
That's
a
your
little too
rebuttal?
good at this, buddy. I'm not. No, I don't. I didn't go to wrestling school.
I'm going to take you to wrestling school. Couple months.
So.
Suplex City.
Wow.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Stuff, guys.
I'm probably just
Good
gonna have to buy a championship belt while I'm in Philly. I'm gonna need some cash though, guys. If you can throw in, thanks.
All right, so let's segue. So we got a little bit different of an episode tonight. We are going to forego our recovery segment at the end. Sorry, Mom. My mom says those are always the best part of it, but I'm going to turn it over to Greg here in a minute. But we are going to do a deep dive and a breakdown of the Netflix documentary, The Program: Cons, Colts, and Kidnappings. It's about juvenile programs or adolescent programs that parents ship their kids off to. And one of the reasons we decided to do this was because Bill has been in a similar program in his youth, and I was actually in one of the actual programs that's mentioned in the documentary. Most of it focuses on one from New York that Greg would get into, but I have personal experience. Bill has personal experience. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg, and then Greg and Corey are going to kind of talk about it and tell us what they thought about it. And maybe if they have questions for us, we can answer them. And then Bill and I will kind of do our thing. But this is something we found intriguing. We've all watched it. It was fascinating to me. I know the other guys, it was fascinating. We've heard a lot of buzz about it just from other people that have talked about it. And it was just something that we thought it would be a kind of a cool thing to break down and get into, especially because Bill and I have some personal experience in programs like this. So with that, I will give it over to Greg.
Thank you, Shawn. Yeah, so the documentary's been out a couple weeks now on Netflix. It's a 3-part documentary. It focuses mainly on the Ivy Ridge Academy in New York, and the main characters of the documentary are a couple of females that were clients of that facility there. But it does also dive into the background of these programs, how some of it worked, the ownership behind these programs, and other things that obviously besides just the seedy stuff that went on there, but even further, like following the money and where a lot of the tuition money ended up going, because it certainly did not go seemingly back into the schools themselves. But what it is it's the schools were funded or part of a program called WASP, which is the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs in Schools, or as it was known later, the Youth Foundation Incorporated, right? And it was a kind of an umbrella corporation. It was founded by a guy named Robert Litchfield. And this guy, he started up all these schools in different places, and it, kind of went after the disturbed teen, kind of segment of the population, I guess you would say, and convinced parents across the world to give him thousands of dollars a month for each child that they sent there. They actually had subsidiaries called what do they call them, Shawn? Transport services or something like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
something like
They
that.
Basically come and
services, yep.
kidnap the kids from their homes in the middle of the night.
Juvenile bounty hunters, essentially, is kind of what they were like. Which is an exaggerated term, but that's essentially what it was like.
Yeah, and so they'd come and kidnap you in the middle of the night, all with your parents' consent, all that they've signed off on, and so the question of legality isn't really there, because parents signed off on it. But and then they would get into these programs, and there were levels that they had to kind of pass through and everything like that. There were very, very strict rules. There were very, very strict punishments. And so the documentary explores a lot of that. My thoughts as an objective outsider to it, I go into documentaries with an open mind most of the time, but also, like with any documentary, you kind of have to sit back and play devil's advocate with it, because there's always going to be a narrative that's being pushed with a documentary, and there's going to be another side to it as well.
And in this case, not to cut you off, but in this case, the narrative being pushed by the woman and the other people that did it was definitely 100% to paint the programs in a very negative, evil manner. Let's just get that out. It was not an unbiased thing. It was meant to demonize it.
Right. Mm-hmm. And, my initial thoughts from watching all 3 episodes, and then I went back and I kind of touched on some stuff this week too. Well, my initial thoughts were, some of the video footage and stuff like that, the security footage that they have from these, it does show what at first glance seems like some pretty horrific abuse being leveled at some of the kids and whatnot. But it didn't, for me, there wasn't enough conclusive evidence to show in this documentary that kids were abused, and certainly it could be construed as abuse, but also their parents had signed off on this, and essentially what this was, for anybody that didn't watch it, was this was a hardcore, maybe you would say, version of military school for troubled teens, right? So what I took away from this is, at the end of the day, I don't think, and this is just me using plain old logic, I don't think there were too terribly many kids put into these programs that truly and honestly did not belong there, right? I think that for the most part, they probably were troubled teens. I know I was a troubled teen, right? I know my mom used to threaten me with military school all the time, and I sometimes wonder what things might have been different had I gone. Now, maybe nothing would have been different. Maybe I would have turned out the same dude that, we've talked about every episode, leading up to this one, where, and the path I chose. But on the flip side, you know, you never know. And I'm sure that I could have used a little bit of that structure and discipline early on, because at the ages of 12, 13, 14 years old, I was running wild, you know, and it only progressed. So, but yeah, that's what I took away from it. Now, the girls that made the documentary, like, there is allegations of some sexual abuse upon further from female members of the staff there, and upon further investigation, you know, they've named a couple of these female staff members, and you know, I'm sure that investigations and what or lawsuits or whatever are going to take place. The From what I can understand and draw from it, there are Robert Litchfield and some of his associates and family members are still operating schools, but they've taken the whole WASP name out of it, and from what I understand, they've kind of done a pretty good job of hiding themselves and disguising and rebranding what they do. But all of those initial schools, the Ivy Ridge one, the one that Shawn went to, Tranquility Bay in Jamaica, and a lot of the other ones that they talk about in that documentary have been closed. They've been closed for years. Yeah. You know, it was a very interesting watch. The biggest thing I took away from it was, number one, maybe if we tried a little bit better to understand our teenagers, to understand where they're coming from, to sit them down and have some real deal conversations with them, and you know, and not ignore and brush off some of the stuff they're going through, maybe we'd understand each other all a little bit better. But even more importantly, what I took away from this thing is, thank God that I landed in the kind of recovery that I landed in now, albeit, you know, probably 10 years later than I should. But like, you know, thankfully I was surrounded by some people, that some grown men who told me straight up, like, dude, you are king at playing the victim. And you got a victim mentality. And if you ever want to do anything or grow up or live a worthwhile life and a happy existence, you're going to get out of that, you know, and you're going to do some things that are going to help you get out of that and stay out of that. And because watching this documentary a lot of the time, like, that's, you know, and I would hate to victim blame or anything like that, but you know, and anybody that has gone through that type of abuse, whether it be physical, mental, or sexual abuse, you know, like I personally as a child went through that stuff myself, you know, so I would never want to blame a victim or anything like that. But there's a difference between being an actual victim and just having a severe victim mentality. And that's kind of what some of it seemed like. So that's what I took away from it.
Yeah. I agree. One thing I thought was cool about the documentary, if it wasn't staged, because I don't have complete faith that it wasn't, but the fact that they could go back to the building and find all those documents and files was kind of interesting. It's a little, I mean, I guess I believe it. I have no reason not to, but it seems a little bit, you know, hard to believe that they did leave all that stuff behind when they closed down the school. But like, I don't know, obviously, what that looked like. But like, just the fact that one kid that went through that school or whatever facility and can walk in there and almost pretty easily pick up their own file and go, this is my drug test. Oh, it's just like, really? That's interesting. But sure, for the sake of the discussion, I'll believe it. And if that is true, I'm not necessarily calling them liars, but like, if that is 100% true, that's kind of interesting. I too, I also want to, not like, I don't want to take away from anybody's suffering, for sure. But I do have my feelings, and Greg kind of just said it too. Like, my light just did it again. Did you see it?
We saw that one. Yeah.
Thank God. Okay. I do.
Those of you not watching this until it airs the following Friday are going to be very confused. Corey might be on LSD, but that's a sidebar.
That's the last thing I would do as far as hallucinogens. That main character, man, I'll just air this out because that's the main thing I want to say.
She was cringy.
She was cringy, and I literally almost got into an argument with Gabby on the way to Boca about it because I was like, I'm a little harsh when it comes to these things. Like, and I realized, a little bit. I just, dude, maybe it's because I hope I never display a victim mentality in life today, because most things in my life, for me personally, I was a volunteer in, I wasn't a victim. So that's how I would like to see things, because it honestly gives you a lot more power, right? When you take responsibility for things and just kind of, not to say, now here's the deal. Not to say that like I've never just been a pure actual victim of like circumstances or whatever, but like that's besides the point. Man, it seemed like if one of the staff members gave that girl a paper cut by accident, that would have made the documentary. Again, like I'm not even saying that they're lying or that anything that they said is untrue. However, it just seems like, man, like if like it's almost like she wished that she had more material, you know, like just that.
Yeah.
And like you said, like it was supposed to be painted in a negative light. That's where I almost kind of, I don't know if we almost got into an argument, but that's where Gabby was kind of like, or expose what happened. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I understand. Like, yes, expose what happened, but it's negative. You know what I mean? Like they didn't pick anybody that had a pleasant experience there. That would defeat the purpose, wouldn't it? Because there probably was somebody, right? And maybe we'll get into that a little bit with you guys, but
I'm gonna get into that, so don't worry.
Yeah. So you know, whatever. That aside, one thing that also actually like gave me a physical like feeling of anger was that story about that girl's drug test being lied about. I think it might have been in the second episode of the docuseries. You know, allegedly she was admitted into the program and took a drug test, which actually was negative. Like she knew herself to not be doing drugs, obviously. And the what are they called, Shawn? The like the liaison from her to the parents, or
the family reps.
I think it was a family rep, maybe that lied about and said like, oh, we found like whatever in her drug test.
Yeah,
that kind of hurts from a being a drug addict. Like I can, like I would be quite upset. You know what I mean? Because I didn't have many clean drug tests. So if somebody lied about one of my clean drug tests, that kind of sucks. And just the general like theme of the whole thing about like being a kid who, yes, was, you know, troubled youth and all that, and maybe lost their way a little bit, but like genuinely not being able to write an honest letter to your parents. Like that's kind of scary to think about. Like, number one, now kidnap's a strong word, of course, but you were taken with your parents' permission to a facility against your will. Okay, now I'm here and I'm seeing these things happen. I'm seeing these disciplinary whatever's happen, and I can't even say anything about it, you know, because I'm gonna get leveled down or I'm gonna get disciplined or whatever. If I write a letter saying this place absolutely sucks, you wouldn't believe what they're doing here, you got to get me out. Either A, well, one, they're going to read it and they're going to send it back to you and say you can't put all that in your letter to your parents. But even if they did send it, they're telling the parents, don't listen to your kids. They're trying to manipulate you. Which Greg made a point yesterday talking about it. You know, thinking about, Greg literally said this yesterday. I'm taking your credit here, but like thinking about what I would have said to my parents in my first rehab. You know what I mean? I didn't, luckily, but, you know, I could see myself or many troubled youth or drug addicts do that. Like, hey, this place sucks. The staff hates me. They're punishing me for no reason, blah, 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 whatever. And some parents absolutely will buy that crap. So, like, that's a hard line, man. That whole thing is really hard. It's a hard situation because, like I said, the parents probably think they're doing the best thing. No doubt. send my kid. Like, I don't know what to do with my kid. I don't want them to die. They're on a bad path. Please help them. And that's all they want. See that? The light did it again. That's all they want, is for their kids to get help. And, they placed their faith in the wrong place, maybe, or whatever. Or maybe some of these places did help kids. Who knows? Me at least, I only really know what that docu series said. And then the last thing I'll touch on again about that main girl. And again, don't want to belittle her suffering. Like, the truth is the truth, and if the truth is anywhere close to what they did go through, like, there was suffering. And that's unfortunate. But I made my conclusion on her when she was like talking to her father, like, what do you have to say for yourself, with a microphone to his face? Like, what do you have to say for yourself? Like, listen, like, dude, unless your parent absolutely sucks, which I know they're out there. He didn't necessarily seem like one, but unless your parent absolutely sucks, they probably want the best for you. And if they unfortunately were responsible for sending you to a place that didn't treat you well, like, they probably hurt pretty bad about that too. And sure, maybe they didn't believe you for a long time, whatever. Who knows? But man, like, I don't know. That just rubbed me the wrong way. But I'm not her, and maybe I'm a little insensitive at times. But overall, I did enjoy the documentary, and it was good. It was informative. A little cringy at times. Whatever. And I was just praying for Shawn the whole time. So, anyway, yeah. That's it.
It should be noted too that girl's father did take her out of the program early. Like, she didn't have to graduate. So, I know there was 14 months or whatever, but I think we should, acknowledge what was her name? Catherine, her dad, yes, that he did eventually believe her and kind of see it for what it was. So
why was she like not talking to him for a long? See, I'm a bad watcher, so maybe
we'll get into that. We'll get into that. Our producer said she dressed like a homeless person in her own documentary. This is
true.
She did. Go ahead, Billy. Give us your take on it, and then I'm gonna break down. I'm gonna kind of share my.
I mean, my take's a little off the beaten track, so I don't know if you want me to give it, but yeah, I mean, I can relate from my own life perspective. I agree with everything Corey and Greg were saying. I don't really agree with today. I don't agree with not having a victim mentality, because if you were abused, and I'm pretty sure that she was to some extent, whether I can say mine was worse or not or whatever, I can understand. Like, she's never worked any sort of way through it. So, you know what I mean? So,
well, they don't say. She doesn't say if she's going.
Well, by the visual representation of her, she has it. Yeah, I'm making an assumption though. Right.
Hold on. Because remember, she said that when she got out too, that she had all kinds of panic attacks and anxiety attacks. And she definitely gave the impression that she's never worked through anything. Now, this was also 10 years in the making, so maybe she has, but at least when she got out, she said that she was like just totally effed on like the real world.
Yeah, and pain is perception, almost like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You know what I mean? So what happens to her? You know what I mean? So obviously she was clearly traumatized, and so, like, from what I can tell, obviously Corey made a great point about the files like that. Now that he said that, like, it probably was staged, but maybe they found it there and it was a dramatization of,
right,
let's just put it here, you know what I mean, to make it look better or whatever,
like
or flow, you know. Anyway, but yeah, for me, you know, I have to say this to kind of make it make sense, but you know, I lost both of my parents, didn't have parents growing up, due to drugs, alcohol, and things like that, and I was raised by my grandparents, adopted at like 10, and by 14 I was sent to the military school, and during that year, that was like a summer camp deal. It was lonely and hard, you know, because I got taken away from my grandparents, so I wanted to be with. They were like representations of my my real parents. I mean, because that's how they acted, or what they were in my heart. And then I was sent to like a private boarding school, like a college prep, a good like school that my family spent money that was like my dad's life insurance money to send me to this school. So I can like almost like relate to that part. But like when that came around and I was there at that school and Thanksgiving came around and I was the only one there except for like the foreign kids from China that didn't celebrate Thanksgiving. And it's like me and this Chinese dude in a dorm. It was lonely and it was dark and depressing. And it really kind of increased my abandonment thing. And then when I lost my grandfather that February at that school, I kind of all bets went off and I got kicked out of there quickly. Within a couple of months before the end of that school year, I was in a place called Whale's Tails in Pittsburgh, which this is where I can't really relate because the places I went to that are in that kind of umbrella of process were state ran, but they still, they had to put their numbers up and have their people in there. You know what I mean? To keep their funding coming. You know what I mean?
Right. State funding.
And, yeah, and it was the same thing as far as like now that place did a lot of like going out of their way, like the cross-dressing thing. I still don't really, trying to really do some almost like Scientology level of embarrassing
Weird
people and having dirt on you. Where like me, they broke you down at the beginning. You're level 1. You got to ask to leave the room. I would say too, with the state ran places, like you had to fight the other kids. You had to. It took me 6 months to get my first family visit because at that time it was really only my aunt and uncle were the only ones like involved in my life. I was a terror, but I had gone through a lot. And my first family visit, I go down on my family visit, and the roommate friend or whatever stole all my clothes and left and ran, and I had no clothes, no clothes, nothing. And that was like my friend, you know what I mean? And so you're around really crappy people. Now those were like, and honestly, that dude, it was like one of the better people there. A lot of people there suffered from like, man, like I felt I was in a bad situation. I feel really bad for these people. The level of abuse and trauma that these people have suffered from their family before they got there. I saw all that stuff. And then I went to a specific place for long-term treatment. They're called Auberly in McKeesport in Pittsburgh. And I had this roommate, Sam, and I reached out to him and I was reading my messages to him a couple years ago, and he actually passed away like a lot of people in these places. RIP to him. But we were talking about how we had this canned tobacco, and Mr. Wayne, this big 250-pound dude, had caught wind that we had this tobacco. And he called us out of our room. He called us in the office, and he's like, "Where's the tobacco?" And he's got me and him in the office. He locks the door, and we're like, "What tobacco?" We're like, "What tobacco?" We're just like looking at each other, sweating bullets. He's like, "I know it's on you," and we wouldn't give it to him. Sam had it in his back pocket, but I mean, he beat the shit out of us. I mean, he didn't restrain us. He beat the shit out. He punching us in our chest, throwing us around, throwing us into file cabinets, throw us on the ground, drop the elbow on us while the other one's just standing there because you're not going to try to. This dude would have whooped both of us at the same time. And then when he was done, he called in the other staff member and he said, "Hey, we're going to tell everybody these guys got in a fight with each other if it ever comes up." Right. And the guy goes, "Yep," just like that. You know what I mean? So I lost trust in a lot of humanity and authority at that point but really, like, I'm not going to say that the place was a bad place because there was a lot of programs that I didn't like follow the rules to, but the staff, like the people they had hired to work there, like, and you can't really blame them. They're not going to go get like, Harvard educated or whatever, you know what I mean? They had just lower level people that were kind of had street backgrounds themselves, you know what I mean? That could not deal with stress at the level of stress. We did do the same things. We did groups where we would break each other down, like all our flaws, all that stuff, the 5 body basics, eye contact, body posture, facial expression, face the person you're talking to, and voice tone. And we would do that every day, and we would talk about it. And man, it sucked. It was really rough. It was lonely. And then I got out, did the same things, went back in. And funny story, on my way back in, I already knew what the whole thing was about. You get your one phone call at this place that they had sent me back to, and you could walk into this kitchen. And back then, you kids might not know, they had wired phones, like a phone with a wire in it. So I walked around into the kitchen. The phone's here. I walk around like the island. I unplugged the top of the phone. I wasn't calling anybody, and I took it into the fridge handle, and I plugged it into the fridge handle, and so it looked like I was standing in the kitchen to the staff member. I went around the fridge, and there was an emergency door, and I ran out the door, never to go back to a group home or a placement or a treatment center again. I was 16 years old. I was a ward of the state, but then I got emancipated. I got my GED. I mean, I slept on park benches after that and all that stuff, and I built my way out of that. Was that the best thing for me at the time? I don't know, but it was like when I went back there, I was like, dude, I'm like, because they were like, if you come back here because of the crap I caused the first time, we're gonna beat the shit out of you, you know. And I don't know if they were just saying that, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna find out. I got to get the hell out of here. You know what I mean? So to me, like sleeping on a park bench after that wasn't a big deal because I didn't want to get beat up by a big old dude down at Whale's Tails again. You know what I mean? Yeah, big old Wayne. It wasn't Wayne at that place, but yeah. And another thing too, what you were saying, they did the same thing with the what was it, like the body snatcher? Like don't tell them. I could tell now. Like they'd be like, don't tell the kid. Don't. And then they get there and they're like, all right, you're coming in this car right now. And they grab you by the collar. And they took me to, Greg might know where this is, Meadville, Pennsylvania, in the middle of the winter, dude. And they're like, they take you up to this place and they're like, go ahead and run. You know, it's like,
yeah,
like,
I dare you.
yeah. And that was like a temporary thing. But, you know, here's what I've done. It's cool to like, it's kind of a fearful subject. It was dark times for me, but it was cool because I kind of looked into my soul on it. And I don't know if anything could have really fixed me then. I'm a miracle. Right. The fact that I got through it and saw the other side. And it took me a lot of more years of pain, but I don't know if anything really would have fixed me. So I can't really like blame the system. You know what I mean? Like there were options, and I'm sure there were people that were successful out of there. But I will say that there are a lot of the people I knew there are dead. Overdose, suicide, and a lot of the people there were either involved in abuse before they got there or directly abused or both in the center. Like those centers are breeding grounds for all sorts of abuse and things like that. But then again, like you guys were saying, like if you're a parent, like I try to think about this today, and I would pray to God that my kid would never end up in a place like any of those places, because I do not recommend that to any parent, regardless of the situation. I think a nuclear family and a relationship with God for the family is really the only thing that can fix it. And that's my experience. But you know, if you're thinking about that, or you know someone thinking about it, please try to dissuade them, because I don't think it's right. Me personally, I was a tough situation because I was like living with my grandparents and they were getting older. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I can't really, the whole thing with the program, I thought the same thing about like what Corey was saying. It seemed a lot of dramatization, but it was really cool. I'm going to let Shawn take the mic because it was really cool to get to hear our brother here, Shawn, talk about it. So go ahead, let it rip, Shawn.
Thank you for that. I appreciate your honesty on that, Bill. I know some of that's kind of difficult to divulge, but you said something about like, I don't think anything could have really helped me. It's a miracle that you're here. I'm reminded of one of the lines from our book that we read, our recovery book, and 100% hopeless apart from divine help. Like really and truly, God, that speaks so true. But all right, so I'm going to do this kind of like my own experience style, and I have some notes. I went to Tranquility Bay, which is in St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. It was one of the 6 or 8 WASP programs that Greg was talking about, one of the original 8 that were included in that WASP. There was Ivy Ridge, which is what the documentary mostly centers on, Ivy Ridge in upstate New York, like Ogdensburg or something like that in New York. The first one started out in Utah. There was one in South Carolina, I think Montana. Then they had one in Mexico, Costa Rica, Western Samoa, even the Czech Republic at one time. So, but I was in Tranquility Bay, Jamaica. So I'll just start. I was a complete menace. I was running away all the time. My mom had already grounded me till I was 35. So I just was like, well, what's she going to do? Ground me for another 15 years? Like, so I just figured I'd leave. Sidebar real quick. Mom and dad, I know my mom will listen to this. I don't think my dad's listened to an episode yet. Mom and dad, sorry in advance for anything I may or may not say. I don't know how this is all going to make you feel. I think it'll ultimately be all right. The way you'll feel about it because of my experience. And we've talked a lot about this over the years. My mom, dad, and I have. As a matter of fact, we just talked about it on Easter Sunday because I was telling them that we're going to break this down on the podcast. So,
double sidebar, Shawn. I think you're ungrounded now.
You know what?
Nice.
I think so. Yes.
Congratulations, dude.
My man.
Ungrounded.
Sorry, Mom, I'm out of here. No. So I was a complete mess. I was drinking and smoking pot, and I had started doing cocaine. I wasn't. I probably would have told you back then that I was doing cocaine in air quotes, but I had only done it a few times up to age 15. But I had done it, mushrooms once or twice, but mostly it was. I just was complete disregard for rules. I ran away all the time. When we first moved to Florida, I ran away right at the beginning of one of the hurricanes, and like my parents, they didn't know where I was for like 3 or 4 days legitimately. I had pretty much dropped out of school 3 months into sophomore year. I was barely going, if going at all. Total disrespect, like just an absolute menace, and starting to get in with some. I always hung out with older people, so started getting in with some really unsavory older characters. And I was living with my uncle on my dad's side. And yeah, thanks, Bill. Grizz may or may not wake his way into this story, but I was living with my uncle on my dad's side. My dad hadn't officially moved from Virginia to Florida yet, but my mom moved me to Florida when I was just like at the end of my freshman year of high school when I was 15. We were only there for a couple months. I wake up one morning, and I say morning, it was probably like midday or like 10 or 11 o'clock. And up come the stairs comes my dad, my uncle, and these two big ass dudes, these transporter dudes. And they basically tell me like I'm going with them. My dad was there. I don't even really remember. I was so out of it. I was out late the night before partying, I'm sure. I don't really remember how I felt. I think ultimately I went right into escape mode. Like, how am I going to get out of this? Like I started plotting. Oh, and boy, I did, at least temporarily. They take me to a hotel in Boca Raton. We were just talking about the Rat's Mouth before this, Corey. Corey's
Mouth.
Boca Raton. That was before we started recording, but it was in Boca Raton. They took me to a hotel because I was going to this program. I don't even know if I knew it was Jamaica at that moment, but the paperwork, because I'm a juvenile, I'm an adolescent. I'm 15. I just turned 16 years old. This was in October of 2004. I turned 16 that July. Go to this hotel, beg and plead for them to let me talk to my dad. My dad, smart man, didn't want to talk to me because he thought I was going to try to manipulate and persuade him, which of course I was. He comes up to the hotel room. They let me have a few minutes alone in the bedroom of the hotel room with my dad. We're on the second floor of a hotel room, and I have my back to one of those like big sliding glass windows, like same as like a sliding glass door, but on the second floor it was like a window. And I had already checked it out a little earlier. I'm talking to my dad. I'm begging him. I'm pleading. Don't take me. Don't take me. Come on. How could you do this? And like he can recollect that like he noticed me like stepping backwards a little bit here and there. And sure enough, he like put his heads in his hand, like turned away for just a moment. He was probably 10 feet away from me, and I fling that window open and I jump out the second story window. And I just, so much adrenaline, I land right on my ass, like just boom, right on the ground, right outside, right on my ass, second story. And I just get up and I start hauling ass. I get hitchhike on I-95, get this young dude to pick me up with like his pregnant girlfriend and a old beat up Cadillac. I had $20 on me and like a dime bag of marijuana. I don't know why they didn't search me and find it. So I smoked this guy out, tell him my whole sob story. And he's like gung. He's like, don't worry, dude. We're going to get you to safety. Like, screw your parents. They're not going to do that to you. Like, he had a wife beater on. Like, it was
smoking weed with his
classic.
pregnant wife in the car.
Yeah. Totally. Like, just, he was on me. He was like 20 years old, right? He gets me to the Boynton Beach Mall. I worked at I was the salad bar guy at the Ruby Tuesdays.
Yes.
A very shitty one, by the way. And this older guy that I had been hanging out with and living with, and I would like run away to his house. He was like 18 or 19. I was selling some weed for him and all that stuff. I tell him what's going on. He says, I got you. I'm out of work in 2 hours. Go sit in the back of my car. lay down, like just lay down. Of course I don't. I start walking around through the mall. Like I don't remember why. Like I just do. I come to like where the JC Penney is, where it's just like almost like a dead end, except for the JC Penney and like the Claire's, whatever it was at the end. And all of a sudden I start noticing like security, and they're like yelling at me, get on the ground, get on the ground. I think I used to say at gunpoint. I'm pretty sure that was a lie, so I'm not even going to start there. But like they did surround me.
It was at gunpoint. It was at gunpoint.
Yeah, well, okay.
It was.
And I get on the ground, and they ultimately Baker Act me because they said I was suicidal for jumping out of the window. I may have also said, I'm going to kill myself if you take me here. I wouldn't put it past me, but they Baker Act me. I wasn't really suicidal, except maybe for the drug use that I was about to get into, but not like mentally unstable suicidal. Although my mom would probably argue differently. I get Baker Acted. I'm going to say this, Mom, I love you. You and I have worked past this. We went to see like the therapist in the Baker Act unit. I believe it was like St. Mary's in West Palm Beach or Jupiter or something like that. But I was there like 24, 48 hours to go see the therapist. And all I remember is my mom lying through her teeth to that therapist in an effort to get me sent away, whatever it was. Like, I understand that it was maybe only because she had she was desperate and she had no other option or didn't think she had an option. But I remember just her bold-faced lying about it, and I was so upset. And again, I love you, Mom, but I just remember that. So this time, I'm there like 72 hours, whatever it was. The transporters come back, and there's 4 of them this time instead of 2 of them. There's 2 new guys. Or no, there's one of the same guys and another new guy. And then there's this other new guy who is the brother. So one of the guys in the hotel jumped out of the window after me and broke his leg. So this guy's brother comes along with another new guy, and then one of the original guys, and then this.
You're
woman.
Lucky they didn't beat you up.
Well, yeah, right, exactly. I get handcuffed to the guy. I'm now handcuffed to him, and he basically says like, "Try to run now." They take me straight to Miami International Airport. I get on an airplane. The guy gets on the plane with me. He uncuffs me by this point, but I'm with him on the plane. He tells me I'm going to Jamaica. I don't think I knew where I was going up to this point. He tells me I'm going to Jamaica. Don't worry, it's on the beach. There's girls there. Like, you're going to smoke a lot of weed, I'm sure. Like, all this stuff. And I'm just like, cool. Like, okay. Like, maybe it's not so bad, right?
Weed?
I get to... Huh?
Weed? Did that pique your interest?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You're so awkward, dude. You're so freaking awkward.
Go on.
So I get there, and I spend 16 months and 5 days at this program. I graduated all 6 levels. I was the president of the upper level team by the time I left there. And it just dawned on me watching the documentary the other night that I was the effing valedictorian of my graduating class. I was like one of 5 nominees or finalists, and I got it. And it was me and this girl, Stephanie, like the guy and girl, however they do it. We had to give these speeches to our graduating class. And I totally forgot that.
Please tell me you have the yearbook.
We might, dude. I might have it in my stuff. If anyone has it, Suzanne, if you're listening, I know you eventually will. We got to dig some of that. I guarantee you my mom kept stuff like all the letter writing. We had to write a letter like once a week, I think, to our parents. And I'm sure she may have
in
all
that place. They're like
already.
Most likely to go to prison. And they get
we need the diploma. We need the
diploma, all of it. I'll do some research on that. I'll talk to my mom. So the way it works in the documentary, and I want to try to streamline this as best I can. In the documentary, they talked a lot about how if you smiled without permission, you would get a demerit, and if you looked out the window and like all this stuff. Not as extreme as the documentary made it out, but there's definitely some truth to that. Any little thing, you walk your first 3 levels, you're in a lower level, and you're with your family unit. I can't remember the name. I think we were Unity. Ours was Unity. Triumph was right across the hall. I'll never forget it. And you had to walk in line, single file line. You couldn't get out of line. You couldn't do this. You had to fold your clothes a certain way. Like you did. It was very strict. They had these codes for all these demerits: unsatisfactory, 5 points; NFD, not following direction, 25 points; major manipulation. Like there was all these codes. all these different demerits for literally almost anything, all the way up to like contraband, drug use, fighting, violence, all that stuff. You gain like a certain amount of points every day that you don't get a demerit, and obviously demerits take those points away. Once you get to a certain amount of points, you do a seminar and you can go to the next level. But your teacher, your family father, and your family rep all have to like sign off that you can go to the next level once you get the points, once you complete the seminar. And then you work your way up, you do all that stuff. You do school at your own pace. Like we didn't have computers in Jamaica, but the way in the documentary, how they said you do school at your own pace, it's exactly what we did. And I did 3 years of high school in 16 months. And I was like, just fucking firing it in with this stuff. And they had one teacher per classroom, but it was like only your family, your unit was in one classroom at a time. Like they had different, so one teacher for maybe 30 kids, I guess. So it's probably not good, but I think we have some public schools like that nowadays too. They did have a couple other like tutors, so to speak, that would come help you if you were really having trouble, you know, and some were better than others. I don't remember thinking that they were idiots, but some were the way they taught was a little bit better. You had to ask to go to the bathroom, ask to stand up, ask to speak. When you had to go number 2 to the bathroom, they wouldn't give you a roll of toilet paper. They just roll a little bit off, and they would give you just not a lot of toilet paper, bro. Like you are scrounging squares. Yes, Corey.
That's another huge like complaint I have with all those programs is like it's not even the big stuff like the disciplines of like the really bad stuff. It's like the basic human stuff that like
so check it out.
You can't have a whole roll of toilet paper.
Check it out. We would have to stash it all around the place and stuff. Once you got to the upper levels, you could, but not in the lower levels. And sometimes some staff, if you were cool and they were cool, like they'd give you a little extra. But check it out. We didn't even have fucking soap in the bathrooms, nor hot water.
Crazy.
So did you have word muncher on the computers?
We didn't have computers.
You didn't have computers.
We were not that
I thought it was all computers. She said it.
Not for us. No, at Ivy Ridge was, but mine was not computers. It was pen to paper.
An actual teacher. Okay.
Yeah. They didn't teach. You did it at your own pace. You have the textbook, and you just did the chapter work out of the textbook. They had like a curriculum, but no computers. But they didn't even have soap in the bathrooms. Now, they did have hand sanitizer that you could get a squirt from your family father when you got out, but like
family father,
that's what they called it. Yeah, family father. Yeah, that's what you're like. So you have your teachers, you have your family rep, which is like a social worker or your case manager, so to speak, and then you had 2 family fathers on shift at all times, and they would rotate. They had like 3 shift. The 7 to whatever shift, the midnight to 8 a.m., all that stuff. So
I was about to say that this doesn't sound at all like a cult until you just said that.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to resemble a cult.
Yeah, that did it for me too.
I'm the family father.
So like, all right. So let me pause there for a second. Any questions, comments about any of that, or you just want me to keep going?
Just a quick one I got real quick. Did you carry any resentment towards the actual people, like the family father? Or were they kind of good-hearted a little bit, or was?
I'm gonna touch on that because this is where I think you said it. Like, I'd love to see somebody else's experience, or maybe Corey said it, of like a positive experience. And I got to say, on the whole, all in all, compared to the documentary, mine was a positive experience. And I got a few notes real quick. Let me do the notes. Just a couple little things real quick.
While you're looking for them, I just want to say that there are times in life that I may have doubted, because you are very recovered, Shawn, that you were a drug addict, but that story. That's why I keep you around, buddy.
I was out of there, dude. I was out of there.
Wild.
That's why I keep you around.
So the part in the documentary where you first get there and they make you sleep on a mattress in the hallway, and like they put you on like run watch, which is ultimately like run/suicide watch, real thing, total real thing. All the different there was like probably 200 different codes and demerits you could get, anywhere from 5 points to like 500 points. No bullshit. Because like to get to upper levels, you had to have like a couple thousand points. That's kind of how it accumulated. if you really were unruly and they were restraining you or putting you in OP, observational placement, that scene in the documentary where they're laying on their stomach with their hands behind their back and their like chin like this on the floor, saw it all the time. And they would make you stay like that for hours, like hours. And if you bucked it and like got up, said, fuck this, I'm not doing it, and you got up, they would do it again. And I never actually saw, I got to say this is important, I never saw a staff member physically like hit, punch, kick, or assault a youth. But when you were super unruly and you tried to fight them or have a weapon or got just crazy, start throwing, I saw kids throw desks. They would grab you. They would come grab you and they would restrain you. They'd put you in the floor and they would take your joints, your like knuckles and like your
Pressure
wrists, and
points.
they would grind your fucking joints
like
into the tile floor. Yeah. And they would kind of do that. And that never happened to me, because I will say this, 1 month into my stay here, I got a not following directions one afternoon. I can remember where I was on the facility and what time of day it was. I was washing my clothes in a bucket, mind you, hand washing my clothes in a bucket outside. And I got a not following, and I realized at that point, okay, now I get it. This is how the game has to be played. This is how I have to act in order to get through this place and graduate this place. My parents take me out early, great, but I fully understood how the game was played. And I was going to play it real good, and I fucking did. And some of it was genuine. I couldn't help but be genuine at some point as it went on. But at first, it was just to comply and get through as quickly as I can. So, let's see. The levels, the phone call. I didn't get to speak to my parents probably for 8 months. I think it was that long. It could have been a little less, give or take. It might have been a little less until I got to level 3. And yes, the family reps monitor every single of those conversations. The whole strictness about facial expressions and not being able to smile, I don't remember it being that serious like they said in the documentary, but there's definitely some truth to it. Definitely couldn't have any contact with the girls. You couldn't even look at the girls. That was one thing that you weren't like. There were a few times during the day where the women family units would be crossing the courtyard or something, because we all shared the same cafeteria and the same school, just at different times. And you couldn't look. And if they caught you looking, you got big time demerits, which let's be honest, we didn't need to have any contact with the women. That would have been a terrible, terrible idea.
And you all looked when you could.
Yeah. Remember that in the episode, the girl, the first episode, the box she had to carry around for like 8 days or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't remember anything like that happening. That might've just been her bad luck. Everything was censored. All your letters were censored. All your packages were censored, phone calls, everything. And they would tell you, don't try to manipulate your parents. They would tell the parents, don't listen to them. And let's be honest, 7 out of 10 kids, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 kids probably were full of shit trying to manipulate their parents just so they could leave. But unfortunately, for the 1 or 2 out of 10 that really were speaking truth about maybe being abused or getting mistreated, they probably weren't getting believed. And that's where that's the sad part to me, that there were probably some kids, and there were some kids that I went there. They didn't there was this one kid named John Trudge. I'll never forget. He was weird. He was strange. He might have been in a little Wiccan or witchcraft or whatever, but he was ultimately the most docile, not going to harm an ant kind of kid. And he was in this place, and he got such a bad rap for being this wicked witchcraft kind of dude. And yeah, he was into some weird shit probably. And who knows, maybe he was, but so there were kids like that maybe they didn't really deserve to be in there, stuff like that. So I worked my way up. I don't get to see my parents, but everything about the seminars in the documentary was absolutely true. You don't get to see your parents till parent-child PC1, called Parent-Child 1, which was going from level 3 to level 4. The parents come to the facility. The whole part about you walking into the seminar and your parents being in there holding hands and stuff, and you having to stand 6 feet away with your eyes closed, or their eyes were closed and you couldn't touch them right away. That was true. Everybody's crying and it's emotional and whatever. And then they finally let you embrace, right? I will say the part where they had the towels wrapped in duct tape and you're banging the shit, that was real. I did that. I personally don't think that the seminars were absolutely I think they were pointless. My mom might disagree with you. Maybe I just don't remember. We did like trust exercises, and I remember we're in like the lifeboat at one point. Like, I don't remember, stuff like that. So maybe there was some therapeutic value of it. I wouldn't be shocked if there was no therapeutic basis on any of it whatsoever. And it was just like David Litchfield coming up with this random idea, and modeled after other things.
Shawn,
I really hope. Yeah.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the towel thing with the duct tape around it or whatever. See, the way they spun that in the documentary was that they did it to exhaustion. Like, it wore them out. Or did you have that experience with it, or was it just?
It might not have been. I don't. They said something about. Remember the hands up, hands down, hands thing. I don't remember doing anything like that or the towel thing for hours upon hours. But I do think we banged that towel maybe for an hour at most, at most.
Fair enough.
Or
that's a long time.
Truthfully, it could have been like 10 minutes. I don't really remember, but I do remember doing it. I hope to God, for my parents' sake, when they talked about the parent seminars and dressing up in drag and all that, I hope to God my father did not have to dress up in drag. I truly, truly hope to. I just want to say that.
That's the moment I'm taking my kid from that program, by the way.
That's I don't know. That's too much for me. I really hope. My mom either. I hope she didn't have to dress like a Mambo, especially my dad. I hope not, Dad. So I think I'm pretty much done because the upper levels, you do get a lot of freedom. Like, that was one thing that's true. It is like an entirely different world. You work for the facility and they pay you, and you like pay them rent, and they do teach you how to like budget your money, and you can do your own grocery shopping, and you can get your own stuff, and you have a lot more perks, and you can get like CDs sent and music and other stuff that you're not allowed to get at the lower levels. And then just each level 4, 5, and 6, you get more and more privileges. That was the other thing. Lower levels, if you have to go somewhere, you have to have on the buddy system, walk with a buddy. Once you get to level 4, you can just kind of not roam around, but like you don't have to have. Or I think level 4 was a buddy, and level 5, that was one of the perks, like going to the 5th level and all that stuff. Once you get to level 4, you get to have an off ground with your parents where they come and you get to go out with them and go to dinner or whatever. I remember we went to like the Black River on like a riverboat cruise and all that stuff. The guy, David Gilcrease, that runs all the seminars, he's a real dude. I met him in the documentary. Ken K, the president of WASP, was the brother to a guy named JK, who was the program director at Tranquility Bay. Greg, those other documentaries you sent me about Tranquility Bay, I've watched half of one of them, and JK is in the one. Like, he's interviewed a bunch of times.
I didn't like him.
The other part in the doc that caused trauma to Catherine and her friends was when you got to the upper levels and you had to discipline and give demerits to the lower levels. That was true. We had to do that. And it did suck. But I'll be honest with you. I was getting the fuck out of there as quickly as possible. So I didn't really care that much. I did what I had to do. We had like a quota we had to give out. And listen, most of the lower level kids it was easy you did not have to work hard to meet that quota. They were disruptive. They were doing things that, in some of the lower levels, you almost like had an understanding with them. Like, hey, I'm just going to give you some demerits because you're been on level 0 and you have no intention of going up a level. And they were kind of like, yeah, cool. Just do what you got to do. Like, I don't care. So that was kind of cool. I have a note here. If you guys remember in the documentary when the one kid, I think his name might've been Shawn. He was like skateboarding. It was like in the second or beginning of the 3rd episode. And they were showing pictures of different businesses in the town. The tavern. Do you remember the name of the tavern?
No.
Nig's Tavern. Nigs Tavern. I just thought that was, I don't know, maybe indicative of the town that Ivy Ridge was in and the type of untrained staff that they were having work there. Nig's Tavern. Nigs Tavern. Just, I had that. That popped out at me.
That's a real bad look.
Checks out.
You could try to run from Jamaica, but it was in a poor part of Jamaica, and they would actually pay the locals to bring you back, to like restrain you by any means necessary and bring you back. And kids tried to run all the time. I personally never did. I thought about it. I planned it a few times, never got the courage to do it. These two kids got away and they were gone for like 5 days. They like got a boat somehow, like a little dinghy boat, like a rowboat. And they ended up in like a really bad place off the Caribbean Sea, like inside the mountain, like the cave, no food or water for like 4 or 5 days, had to be rescued. One of them was hospitalized because of it. So like it was a very rugged terrain and stuff like that. It's hard for you to run.
I wanted to ask you, Shawn,
Yeah.
I think it was in the one that Greg sent us. Did you have to take a boat to get to the place? Like had to?
No,
okay.
but it's like a 3-hour drive from Montego Bay Airport on some of the most unpaved, windy roads. And if anybody's ever been in those countries, they drive like absolute maniacs. But no boat.
We did a segment for them last week.
Yeah, true. Good point. I still have. So I graduated in 16 months and 5 days. I already told you I was the president of all this. I never got abused physically, sexually, anything like that. Somebody asked a question about how cool the staff were. When you played the game, you 100% like the staff would like knew who was doing the right thing, and they'd give you some extra perks, and they'd be a little cooler with you for sure. Right. Like absolutely 100, that would happen. I definitely learned some things, right? I don't know how therapeutic it was. I didn't stay sober when I left. I mean, I got into some of my worst drug use days after I left and got home, but I also had no intention of staying sober when I got out. I definitely learned some good orderly direction, some good valuable life lessons. I really did. And I think part of my success today is definitely stemmed from the regimentation, the order, and like how I like that part of my life for sure. Don't doubt it at all. And it kept me alive and it kept me out of jail. Who knows where I would have been had I not had that stint there, because I was going off the deep end. I want this, mom and dad. I absolutely don't fault you. I have no resentments against you. I wouldn't change an absolute thing about my life at all. Wouldn't change it. Wouldn't go back. I love my life. I love my family. Love my friends. I love doing this podcast. No way, Jose, would I have changed anything about it. And I know that at that time, they were desperate. And if they had a better idea than sending me to one of these programs, they would have gone with that idea. This was the best idea to them. I asked my mom, why Jamaica? Why not somewhere in the United States? And you know what her response to me was? Anywhere in the U.S., I know you would have run. I figured it would be a lot harder to run in Jamaica.
True.
Yep.
I still have dreams about getting taken away by transporters. Not very often, but they occur every so often, and they are traumatic in my dreams until I wake up and I'm hugely relieved. I have dreams that I'm back in the program, not for the first time, but like for the second or third time. Like I got sent back there. I mean, even my most recent one, I'm married to my wife, Catherine. Ironically enough, that's the girl in the documentary, not the same one. I'm married to her in my dream, and she's on board with my parents sending me back to Jamaica and all this stuff. And like, so that's a little traumatic, but they're just dreams, and I wake up and I'm fine. Those are worse than my drunk dreams. Yeah, no, those are worse than drunk dreams. So let me see. I think that's it for me. I know we're getting long. I just want to make sure I remember when Ivy Ridge had their riot, they sent some of them to different programs around. And like when Casa by the Sea got shut down, they sent some of them to us. The part about them not knowing the time in when they were like, oh, we're in this seminar and we don't know what time of day it is. That's bullshit. Like we knew what time of day it was. You may not know the exact time, but that's my wife you hear. She's coming home and I'm in the garage and she's outside. I just saw Bill said I hear a TV. She's on the phone outside. So that was BS. Let's see. Attack therapy. There was some of that, but it wasn't like that. But I think that's it. Yep. Yeah, that's it.
You really
that was my
missed
experience.
Your chance to like live off the grid and be a Rasta, though. Like it could have been
That's
like
true.
touche, parents. You think you can do this to me? I'm gonna live off the grid.
Low key, I got to shout out the Jamaican culture as a whole. Awesome culture. Most of them are not potheads the way we Americans think. Most of them don't smoke weed. At least the ones that were staff and working there, they didn't. But awesome culture. And I think on some level, I feel bad for all the money my parents spent because they spent, I think, over 30 grand on this place. However, I've talked to my dad about it, and he's like, hey, it got you to where you are today. I don't regret a minute. You know, I'm sure he'd love to have that money back, but like, so on the whole, I think ultimately I got possibly sent to one of the better of the institutions. If what they said in the documentary is correct, right? Let's just say it is for a second. I think I got sent to one of the better ones, or I just played the game better and complied quicker and did what I had to do, and they didn't want to mess with me. But you know, I don't know. So that's it. I'm done. I could keep going on, but
we could have part two.
It was an experience. Yeah, it was an experience for sure.
Two quick things to add.
Go ahead.
That. Number one, so the title of the documentary, the program, Cults, Cons, and Kidnapping, right? To me, they didn't prove cult stuff really at all, right? Mm-hmm. And they certainly didn't prove the kidnapping part because, again, your parents signed you up for it. The one thing that I think that the documentary kind of rushes through, you know, is the fact that the con of it all, like Shawn, you just mentioned, like 30 grand for
that's
for
what
60
I want.
months,
yes, go ahead.
You know, and like it's 30 grand. They were giving kids fake diplomas that weren't worth the paper they were written on. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't do anything with that diploma. It's not from an accredited school. You know, you can't get into a college with that or anything like that. So, you know, and you know, Shawn, you went on to tell us at least yesterday, like you had the option and you chose to go back to high school when you got back to Florida. But for somebody that might not have done that, you know, they'd have been screwed, you know, and this whole time they're thinking that they have a legitimate degree. So that, you know, that's a huge part of the whole con thing. One thing they didn't mention, I don't think, in the program, but one of the more heinous things that I heard, and it's not like heinous as an abuse, but in 2001 at Tranquility Bay in Jamaica, a girl killed herself. She jumped off the balcony and killed herself, you know, and like
she had just gotten there too, I think.
And she had just gotten there. She only been there like a couple days, and she jumped off the balcony and killed herself. And it's like, you know, so how a school doesn't get shut down after something like that, how that's not a serious failure of staff. Now, granted, that was in 2001, and you went there in when?
I got there 04, 05, and I left in early 06.
So maybe they ironed some of that stuff out, retrained the staff. But then again, that's the other thing. So not only were the schools not accredited, but they had staff that were completely and totally untrained and really not fit for the roles that they had. And then, of course, like I'd be remiss, you know, sometimes I just say things and I, you know, like, so earlier, and certainly like after Bill shared, never want to make light of the trauma. And I don't think necessarily that the documentary does an excellent job, because like I said, it does kind of come off like fishy or maybe just over dramatized. But upon further independent research, like there's a whole group of people out there that are survivors of this, and they have a legitimate website, waspsurvivors.com. I read a lot of stuff off of there and a lot of the comments, you know, and it seems anyways that there are a lot of people that experienced some crazy stuff. Now, Gren, if that's all in my, you know, if I've got a warped perception of reality, then my recollection of events are going to be a little warped as well, you know, and then if I get around a bunch of other warped people, it kind of all breeds into each other. That being said, in my experience, having been through trauma myself, trauma breeds more trauma, right? Hurt people hurt other people. I certainly did, right?
Absolutely.
So it's certainly not to make light of that. I ran a wrecking ball through my own life and other people's life for 20 years. But when I finally not only went to rehab, not only saw a therapist, not only went through some intense therapy, but also worked with some other men in the recovery that were in my same boat, and really worked through that, that was the cathartic experience. And I would hope that anybody that's gone through any kind of significant trauma, that you would want that for yourself so that you can move on from it and not let it destroy you anymore, you know?
And I have no doubt that there was abuse and mistreatment in some or all of the programs to some level, possibly even as bad as the sexual assault. I don't disagree. I don't think that's not true. It didn't happen to me. That's all I can say. I never saw anything super heinous or egregious. I never, and I'm not repressing or suppressing any memories. Like, it wasn't my experience. I saw some wild shit. I never saw anything like that, and if I did, I totally repressed it, but I don't doubt that it did have. My dad even knows of a story of another father whose son was sexually assaulted and it was in one of the ones. So I know it happened. I'm sure it happened. So not to discount anyone's trauma, but it just didn't happen to me. And my experience was different than what the documentary.
And
a lot of stuff is true.
Even the founder, I mean, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I don't think the documentary ever proves anything that he even had malintent with what he might think he's doing the right thing and helping a lot of people. So it's kind of viewers' opinion. I'm not saying he is,
maybe,
but he might think that in his own
mind.
head. You know what I mean? So he might think this is what these kids need. Like I was saying, it's like, you don't really know. A lot of these people are hard to help. So
one of the things I'll stop chiming in after this. One of the biggest things that sucks that you guys already touched on with the exploiting. It's like, man, after watching it, it's like, oh, sweet. People with a lot of money exploiting people with less money to make more money. Again, in our society,
nothing's changed.
And honestly, look no further than the damn rehab treatment industry for more of that. So
I thought you were going to say the Eagles.
I bet you there's a correlation, though. On a real note, I bet you there's overlap. There has to be somewhere with some certain players, certain organizations on some level.
It's like this.
I guarantee it.
I mean, strip away the big traumas and stuff that were described. It's a treatment center. It's what we have all around us in South Florida. So,
guys, we're running way over. Obviously, any parting thoughts? Any comments? We didn't know how this episode was going to turn out. We may revisit this. There's some more documentaries. We'll see. If you really liked this and you want more of this, please drop it in our mentions and let us know. Any of you guys have any parting thoughts? Anything you want to say real quick before we close up?
Next week, WrestleMania. Be there.
Corey, have a safe trip.
Will do.
Yes. Safe trip. Next week, some WrestleMania stuff. We'll probably also have a quick note on the NBA postseason that's going to be starting soon. If not next week, the week after, but definitely some WrestleMania stuff. And we will get back to our recovery segments specifically. So shout out to our listeners. Shout out to Danny P and the Yukon Huskies. This Saturday is a big day. Thank you for your support. Please like, follow, and share on all socials at Trudge Report Pod. You can always email us, trudgereportpod@yahoo.com. Send in requests for topics, questions, comments to any of these handles. Remember, we are all here. If anyone, anywhere, anytime wants to talk, whether it's about recovery, our experiences, something you're struggling with, or some form of addiction. Thank you again to Miss Janine Stella and Stella Mix Podcast Management. Good night. God bless, and may you trudge the road of happy destiny until next time. Cheers.